Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Dijon and today I'm here to review Amazon's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, this is an interesting show. It's sort of a spin or a reimagining of the 2005 Mr. and Mrs. Smith starring Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Now, all disclosure, I love that 2005 Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I thought, because at the time when it came out, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were hot as fuck. And I mean that both in their career and physically. That was probably the most attractive they were at that point. At that point in time, Angelina Jolie was like the sexiest woman on the planet. And Brad Pitt was doing like Oceans, and he was doing all these movies and Fight Club, and Brad Pitt was like the sexiest man on the planet. So seeing these two come together, it's almost like when what am I thinking about? It's almost like when Antonio Banderas, a young Antonio Banderas in Desperados, was in a movie with Salma Hayek. You're like, there's these two Spanish, the two most sexiest Spanish people in Hollywood in one movie. It's like, that's just too fucking hot. Same thing here. Also, as many people know, this movie would be the start of Brad and Angelina Jolie's, romance. But either way, the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith was about two spies living together and not being aware of each other being spies. And the drama that comes from that. They work for two rival companies. And the drama / action / hilarity that comes from it. So, and I love that movie. I thought it was funny. I thought the action was cool. I thought it was an interesting way to tell a love story. I thought the spy aspect of these two spies living together. And because obviously it was the idea is pushing that marital thing to the top. Now, this is different. This Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I remember when I saw it, I was so confused about it. I was like, what, is this a remake? Is this a retelling? But no, this is a reimagining, so to speak, of that concept, which the show was created by Donald Glover and starring Donald Glover as John Smith. And I can't really say the actress's name, but actress's name who's playing Jane, but I digress. This was created and written partially, or at least for the most part, written by Donald Glover. So this is an entire Donald Glover thing. And Donald Glover has written some things in the past. He's created some things in the past. The obvious one is Atlanta on FX. So people kind of know if you're a fan of Atlanta, you kind of know how Donald Glover wants to really direct this. Now this is a very different take, though some of the concepts are still the same. Which is there are two spies living together. Now the show, this one, the way they do this one differently is that these are two random people, different degrees of qualification. Donald Glover's John was ex-military, while Jane was close to being in the CIA. She didn't make it in the CIA, but the fact that she qualified to be in the conversation and even be able to go through the qualifications to be in the CIA means that she knows a thing or two. And that, she was, in the way she talks about it, she was just a hair away from being in the CIA. In fact, they kind of made it sound like the only reason she didn't make it in the CIA is because of her attitude, because she's not an impersonable person. She's a self kind of girl. She doesn't really interact, she's not a very sociable woman. She can turn it on, but it's kind of fake, she has trouble socializing, so to speak, and they that kind of held her back from being in the CIA. And Donald Glover's character got kicked out of the military for multiple other reasons. So these two strangers sign up for this program, and the program, near the program, they're both selected, and they're both given rings. They're both given a new identity. They're told to leave their identities behind, and they're told to basically be a married couple. They're pushed together. They're pushed together, and whenever this computer calls them, they're supposed to go on missions, and that's the end of it. Get paid well, go on missions, do things that need to be done, and the missions vary. I mean, the first episode, they had to go on a mission to steal a box from a lady without her knowing and deliver it to an address, which ended up being a huge dramatic thing, because the old lady, they had to steal it because they haven't worked together and they haven't done anything like this before. So trying to steal this box from this old lady without alerting anyone that they're stealing something from an old lady was quite difficult. And then for it to turn out that said box was a bomb. And you didn't know until the last fucking second. Like, they open it up, it's a cake, and they're like, what the fuck, it's a cake. So the show has this dry kind of... Donald Glover likes to sort of like... He's a conversationalist kind of guy. He likes to direct things in a way, or like, he writes things, and he likes to present things in a way that it seems like they're just two people having a conversation. Like, Atlanta is really just people having conversations. And, like, people being genuine. So he really likes to approach his shit that way. So a lot of the stuff in this this show, is them talking. It's like the beginnings of a relationship, really. It's like you know what? If you think of it this way, the beginning of this movie, the relationship between John and Jane, is essentially like matching on Tinder. You know what it's like? It's like matching on Tinder, saying y'all gonna go on the date, and y'all don't talk anymore, and y'all meet, and y'all doing this right here. Except, I suppose it'd be even worse than that. It'd be like matching on Tinder. It'd be like matching on a site where if you fucking agree, you guys get married, and you guys just have to find out everything about each other ahead of time. It's like an arranged marriage, really. So, the awkwardness of the situation, of these being two people who are very private, not private, but they are kept to themselves, especially Jane, to have to be in contact, like, working together. Oh, we're married, but we're not really married, but we have to work together, but we live in the same house together, and they're both fairly attractive people, and, you know, I don't want to say that if you put two single, fairly attractive people who are in the same room that something's going to happen, but it's very, very clear that the questions that they had to answer before getting the job, and they were paired up because my prediction is because they would make a good couple. Because they would make a real couple, a reasonable couple, a believable couple. So the computer matched them up for that reason. So obviously, if you're with someone who meets a lot of the criteria that you would want another partner, something's gonna happen. But it is awkward at first. I will tell you, they do get over that awkwardness pretty fast. Which I suppose, it's nothing like doing some crazy shit together to like... You know, like, because there's the cliche in movies and shows and, you know, stuff of, you know, the hero saves the girl's life and then the girl's like in love with the hero because he saved her life. It's really not real love. It's adrenaline in the moment kind of shit. And a lot of that happens. They go through multiple events together, like, that they've never done before. So, like, that adrenaline and this shared experience kind of brings them together until eventually they are sort of a couple. Like, you know, it kind of happens fast. I don't know if I might complain that it happened a little too fast, especially considering how it started, you know? But I digress. It's very stylish. It's very well written. It's very funny. I like the approach. And in the end, the thing the story is about is relationships, is marriage. It's a commentary on marriage. It's a commentary on relationships. And it's obviously, they're doing the thing that I love that when creators do, which is they take a normal thing that we all understand. We all understand relationships are tough. We all understand marriage is tough. Like, maintaining a relationship is tough. Like, we all understand the beginnings of a relationship are so weird and are sometimes kind of awkward because y'all don't know anything about each other. Y'all don't know how far I should go, how far I shouldn't go. We understand these things. But at the end of the day, they putting it in the context of these two spies, or spies going around doing all these crazy acts of, frankly, terror, you know, and them trying to do this while trying to figure out what the fuck this relationship they have is. Like, what is this? Are we into each other, or are we just two people who are sharing this experience together, so, like, we think we're into each other? And seeing them try to, like, come to terms with that and how much we care about each other. Now, you see it coming a mile away, what's going to happen between the two, that the two are going to eventually kind of fall for one another. You kind of know that's going to happen. But when you put it in the backdrop of, we're working for this fucking unknown entity that's got us going around doing all this shit, and if we fuck up, they're going to send someone to kill us. Because the first thing you see in the first episode are two other John Smiths and Jane Smiths. So this is a program that is throughout the country. We don't know how far the program goes, but there are John and Jane Smiths all over the country because, and smartly so, a married couple are less suspicious than a single couple. It's a lot less suspicious that a married, that people are like, you know, it's a little less suspicious. That no one would really think that a married couple would do something like that. Honestly, when people start dying, we assume it's a serial killer. Nobody thinks it's a serial killer with a friend, because certain things you would want to do alone. So the system came up with this John and Jane Smith system of these married couples. Now they don't really say it in the show, but I would be curious, because this show could actually be a sequel if they wanted to make it that. It is not too hard for them to say that the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith happened. They liked the organizations that be, saw how well it worked out, saw that, you know, two couples being together was so under the radar that not even the companies who hired these killers didn't even notice it. So perhaps this is a sequel, but I don't think so, but it could be. But I dug Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's a very fun show. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it's a very interesting show. There's an action sequence all the time. The relationship between the two leads are interesting, because you know you wanted to work out for these two. Especially once you get to know them more, you really wanted to work out for these two. But I would give Mr. and Mrs. Smith an 8 out of 10. Check it out on Amazon. Entire season. I think the entire season's uploaded. I believe it is anyways. But anyways, thank you guys for joining the Concrete Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.